Hey everybody, Dr. Jared Skowron from Spectrum Awakening. Today we're going to be continuing our Facebook Live series regarding all the map of autism and how you can bring your child from the beginning and diagnosis to full recovery. Now, feel free to go back onto our Facebook page and look at the other Facebook Lives as part of the series. We kind of started out our Facebook Live series with why does my child have autism and talking about different genetic conditions that can cause autism or other genetic predispositions and risk factors that made your child regress into autism when they were speaking and had eye contact at that time. Then we kind of got into the imbalances in brain chemistry that occur and how to balance those with our new protocol, the Skowron solution. Then we got into diet, we got into gut health and candida infections. We talked about mitochondria. Now we're getting into hormones. And hormones are really important for autism, specifically with mood and behavior and temper. All right. So we're going to be talking about hormones, all about temper and behaviors, because it is such a great way to intervene and help your child naturally so that they have a better behavior and have less temper, especially transitional anxiety, which we know is hard for so many of our kids, okay? So when I talk about hormones, there are many hormones. A lot of the times when somebody says the word hormones, you think about sex hormones. You think about estrogen, you think about progesterone, you think about testosterone. And those are really important once you hit preteen age. So when you get this pre-puberty age and you get to like 10, 11, 12, some of our girls are having their periods at the age of 8 now, which I can't even fathom. I've got a 9-year-old girl. I could not even imagine if she had her period right now. But we've got to look at these ages from when we think of sex hormones, those are going to be involved in this pre-puberty, preteen, and into puberty time and older. But even young kids have hormones that we need to talk about. And we don't have to worry about sex hormones with them, but thyroid hormone is a huge one that we're going to talk about today. So everybody's got thyroid hormone from day one. So that's one hormone we're going to talk about for even young kids to be concerned about. The other hormone that we talk about a huge amount is cortisol hormone. Now, cortisol is your stress hormone, quote, okay? Because it helps you handle stress. So cortisol is a hormone, and that is going to play a role in our mood, in our temper, in our behavior, in our transitional anxiety. So when we say the word hormones, don't just think sex hormones. Yes, that's important for our preteen, pre-puberty, and on, but thyroid is important for your entire life, and cortisol is important for your entire life. So let's focus on the thyroid first. So let's get into thyroid. Now, the reason I talk about thyroid is, number one, it is incredibly important for our brains, okay? So here's a research study. Exposure to thyroid disruptors and adverse effects on brain development. Thyroid hormone regulates vital processes in early brain development, such as neuronal stem cell proliferation, migration, and myelination, okay? Some big fancy words there, but what it means is that thyroid hormone is necessary for brain development, okay? I cannot stress that enough. You need thyroid hormone in order to develop a good brain, okay? Maria asks about the relationship between cortisol and thyroid levels. We'll get into that, Maria. That's a great question, okay? So you need good thyroid. Just that first sentence of that research study. You need thyroid hormone to have brain development, okay? I am very concerned because I see so many kids who have thyroid problems, are untested, undiagnosed, and untreated. And please, I cannot emphasize this enough. If your child has a thyroid problem and you treat it effectively with thyroid medication, honestly, thyroid medication is the way to go. We don't need anything natural. If you got a big thyroid problem, go for the big guns. It works amazing. You want to get immediate language from your child? If they've got a thyroid problem, you'll get it with thyroid medication. Okay, but we've got to test. You've got to test your thyroid. So make sure, and the only way to do that is a blood draw. Okay, so you got to get blood work to test for thyroid and screen thyroid. And please make sure, I feel like I'm fast forwarding to the most important part. I'm going to start out with the most important part. Get a blood draw for thyroid. And if there is anything abnormal, treat it. I see way too many doctors look at abnormal thyroid labs. So you're like, well, that says abnormal on the labs, but Facebook Live right now, Glenn. Anyway, I digest. Test your thyroid. If it's abnormal, get it treated. if your doctor looks at an abnormal thyroid level and says, no, I'm not going to treat it, find somebody else to treat it. I can't emphasize that enough. That is so important. All right. Whew, got on my soapbox a little early today. All right, let's get back to this. Again, thyroid hormone regulates early brain development. Why do we have so much abnormal thyroid problems now? Okay, I believe it comes from two problems. Number one, an iodine deficiency. And I'll get into that. I'm jumping ahead here. But iodine is the most important nutrient for thyroid function. And we're very iodine deficient in our country. And I think many countries are very iodine deficient. Number two, toxins and chemicals interfere with thyroid function. Okay, and this is what this gets into. Chemicals have the potential to interfere with thyroid hormone availability and action at different physiological levels. These things are such as plastic, pesticides, PUFAs, perfluorinated compounds, and flame retardants, okay? Thyroid hormone disrupting chemicals with an iodine deficiency can cause an increased incidence of neurodevelopmental disease and loss of IQ. So again, basically what that says is if you don't have enough iodine and you have more of these toxins and pesticides that affect thyroid, you're going to have poor thyroid function and you're going to have problems. And that problem can be autism. All right, here's another one. Hypothyroid conditions in early life, if left untreated, are associated with adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes, including intellectual disability. All right, we observed a suggestive inverse trend between autism regression and TSH. Now, TSH is the name of the most common thyroid lab. What's important to know about TSH is that it's an inverse lab result, which means the higher the TSH number, the slower the thyroid function, and reverse, the lower the TSH number, the higher and the faster the thyroid function. So when you are slow thyroid, which is much, much more common, you have a very high TSH level, indicating a low, slow thyroid. Okay, so that's an important thing to know. You'll see these three letters, TSH. It's the most common thyroid test out there, but not the only one. So I highly encourage you to get all the thyroid tests done. All right. So again, we see research showing that thyroid problems, especially slow thyroid, can be a huge factor for autism. Okay, easy thing to do, test. Okay, get your thyroid function test. It is a blood test. I know needles are hard with these kids, but it's the only way to do it. Next, check your iodine levels, okay? Just like you can test your vitamin D, you can test your iodine. Now, iodine is best tested through the urine, so a little easier on our kids. You can collect a urine sample and check iodine levels, okay? So you want to make sure your child is getting enough iodine. The number one source of iodine in our diet is iodized salt. So take a look at the salt that you have in your home. Read the label, okay? By FDA law here in the United States, every bottle of salt has to say whether it does or does not contain iodine. Make sure you got salt with iodine, okay? Or you want to give an iodine supplement, all right? So here is a study, iodine and autism. They had 40 kids, 19 out of 40 of those kids with autism, about half, had mild to moderate iodine deficiency. They had lower levels of their thyroid test, the T3 and the T4, and higher levels of that TSH group that was found in autism. The severity of certain symptoms in autism is associated with iodine status in boys with autism, okay? Pretty cool stuff. The lower the iodine, the more the autism. And not only checking iodine levels, but also checking thyroid levels, okay? Here's another study, kind of printed out weird, but iodine deficiency as a cause of autism. And the study continues, a diet deficient in iodine can result in a wide range of negative effects from mild IQ loss to severe mental retardation, all right? How easy is it to change the salt in your home? How easy is it to take an iodine supplement, okay? Make sure you're checking thyroid levels with blood tests. Make sure you're checking iodine status in your urine so you can figure out this one puzzle piece. Remember, autism is this big puzzle. This is the puzzle piece of the thyroid. Make sure it's working. Okay, excuse me. Last but not least, interaction of pesticides and iodine status as a cause of autism. Again, just repeating what I've already said, the U.S. iodine nutrition status has declined markedly over the last 3 decades. This is why we're seeing a huge increase in hypothyroidism in the United States. because we're just not getting enough iodine. Maria adds in, check selenium levels too. That's a great thought, Maria. Selenium is also involved in thyroid function, making sure that the thyroid hormone is produced correctly. When you have a selenium deficiency, you get what's called reverse thyroid hormone, or reverse T3. It's kind of like Bizarro Superman, okay? He doesn't do things that are right, all right? So, and a quick question here from Amanda. And Amanda, you're a 3-year anniversary follower. I've never seen that on Facebook, but thank you for being a 3-year anniversary follower. Oh crap, what did I just do here? What about a child that craves salt? All right, Amanda, that is a great question to lead in to our next segment, talking about cortisol hormones, okay? When kids crave salt, when anybody craves salt, not just kids, they are cortisol deficient. So let's get into that. And number one, if you do crave salt, again, make sure the salt you use at home has iodine, okay? Please, it is so necessary for everybody's health to make sure we have enough iodine and good thyroid function. All right, so now let's cross over into cortisol, all right? Cortisol is your stress hormone. What does that mean? It is the hormone that helps you handle stress. Okay, that's how I want you to think about it. So again, when we look at cortisol levels and stress response, what you probably think is probably the opposite. Just like that thyroid level, that TSH. Let me just throw my, hold on, thank goodness for stethoscopes to catch highlighters. Just like the thyroid test TSH is an inverse relationship to symptoms, okay, the higher the TSH, the slower the thyroid. Same thing with cortisol, okay? The lower the cortisol, the bigger the stress response, okay? So kids who have kids, adults, anybody who has a low cortisol gets really temperamental, gets really frustrated. You're walking on eggshells, transitional anxiety, and any little thing can cause an explosion. People who turn, mountains from molehills, this is what a low cortisol deficiency will cause, okay? Amanda said, oh, cortisol deficient, didn't release, my son craves salt. Okay, so again, the best thing to do is to test your cortisol levels. Again, just with the thyroid, you can test for this. So here's some research. This research study, 18 years old, okay? Why doesn't everybody know about this when the research started almost 2 decades ago, people, all right? Lower cortisol with autism. Individuals with autism have significantly lower serum concentrations of cortisol. Simple, basic, obvious, okay? Here's another one. Cortisol in children with autism. Cortisol may be used as a biomarker of stress and anxiety in children with autism, okay? So again, what we're seeing is low cortisol is associated with a bad stress response, okay? So again, more stress and anxiety with cortisol problems, all right? When we do fix cortisol, we get great improvements with behavior, with temper, with stimming, with sensory processing issues. We don't really get language benefits and language improvements, but when you've got these behavior problems, stimming, sensory issues, stereotypies, that's where cortisol is really going to come in hand. All right, here's another one. Elevated repetitive behaviors, fancy words for stimming, okay, are associated with lower cortisol levels in autism. All right, so we've got to make sure we intervene. Amanda asked with anxiety. Yes. And what is anxiety? Anxiety is a fear response to stress. Okay, so we get anxious because we're fearful, all right? This one is a research study comparing cortisol and sensory sensitivity. So again, kids who are very sensory heightened, kids who are picky eaters because they have all these sensory issues, covering your ears, no eye contact, abnormalities in cortisol. All right. Now, so balancing cortisol levels will improve this. We see it with our patients all the time, and we want to make sure that, hey, if you guys have kids who are you're walking on eggshells, they're very temperamental, big changes to their stress response, we want to make sure you're balancing their cortisol. Okay. Where does cortisol come from? Because when we understand how cortisol is produced in the body, that gives us places to intervene. Okay. So cholesterol, in fact, all hormones except thyroid all come from cholesterol. Okay, let me say that again. All hormones except for thyroid, even the sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, vitamin D is actually a hormone, not a vitamin. They all are made from cholesterol. all right? Not thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone actually comes from tyrosine, which is an amino acid that we use for dopamine and focus. But we've got to make sure we know the cholesterol levels because that is involved. Cholesterol metabolism and steroid abnormalities in autism, there is a link between cholesterol levels, vitamin D, and steroid hormones. And these steroid hormones are things like your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and your cortisol, all right? So here's a map because I wanted to kind of show you. This is a biochemical map of our hormones, and everything starts from cholesterol. I wrote it in there because they didn't say it. Cholesterol becomes something called pregnenolone, okay? Big fancy word there, pregnenolone. But pregnenolone then becomes all of our hormones. It becomes progesterone. It becomes cortisol. It comes over here and becomes testosterone and estrogen or estradiol, okay? So all of these hormones are made from pregnenolone and made from cholesterol. And these are places where we can intervene medically in order to improve your cortisol levels, your sex hormone levels, if your child is of puberty age. And it's really easy to do. So again, a lot of biomed docs actually intervene at the cholesterol level. So you can take a look at cholesterol levels. And if cholesterol levels are low, then this whole pathway is going to be low. Okay, most people are concerned with high cholesterol, not low cholesterol, but there's research with autism being associated with low cholesterol. Why? Low cholesterol makes all of these guys low, including this pregnenolone. So what we can do is intervene by giving cholesterol pills. They make cholesterol pills. I'm a little cautious about that because then we got to worry about heart issues, but we can intervene at this pregnenolone level, okay? So here's some research studies about pregnenolone. Easy enough. This is an open label study of pregnenolone in adults with autism. Pregnenolone yielded a statistically significant improvement in the primary measure of the aberrant behavior checklist of irritability. So the pregnenolone increases the cortisol levels, helps with irritability and temper, okay? Here's another one. Only 2 more to go, then we'll wrap all this up. Pregnenolone with risperidone. I'm not a huge fan of risperidone, but you know, if your child's very violent, risperidone can help. But pregnenolone with risperidone ameliorates irritable behavior in autism, okay? So there's a greater exhibited improvement for the pregnenolone group on irritability and stereotypy, that's stimming, and hyperactivity, okay? So we see pregnenolone is helping. And last research study, in addition to pregnenolone, which I love as a supplement, we can also use different supplements to help cortisol balancing. Those are really done well with different herbs, or we can use something called adrenal cortex extract, which is basically animal adrenal glands, and that can help production. I like the herbs. I like both, but I think the herbs work a little bit better. One of the herbs that we use a lot of and is in our supplements for this is ashwagandha. Okay, and here's a research study on ashwagandha in brain disorders. Okay, what it says is the neuroprotective chemicals of ashwagandha have key pharmacological effects in brain disorders, including anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, and more. Okay, including schizophrenia, dyslexia, etc., etc. So it's great what these natural treatments can do. So it's really, really cool. So let me kind of sum up and show you what supplements you can take to help and kind of go from there and then answer some of the live questions you've got. So let's start with the cortisol and then kind of work backwards. So again, cortisol levels will be abnormal in your kids who have a lot of behavior problems, a lot of temper tantrums, a lot of stimming, and a lot of sensory processing issues, okay? You can test it, okay? Better tested in the urine. You can do blood draws for cortisol, but it's better tested in the urine. You don't have to test for it, okay? You can just try the supplements. And again, the supplements that you want to use, you can intervene anywhere from the top down, okay? You could give cholesterol pills if you want to, but you got to make sure you're retesting your cholesterol every couple months. You can intervene with pregnenolone, okay? I will often do blood tests for pregnenolone on my kids. Don't have to. You can take a supplement of pregnenolone. So there's our pregnenolone supplement. I take this myself. I love it. They are tablets, okay? So the tablet's kind of that size right there, all right? But easy to crush up, easy to take. There's not much flavor to it. It's kind of chalky, sticks in your teeth if you're chewing it. But again, if you can swallow a tablet, swallow it. You can crush it up. Pregnenolone, easy peasy lemon squeezy. The supplements for the cortisol, we have our ashwagandha supplement, which is called a temper tamer. Now, this also has 5 herbs total. It's got licorice, it's got ashwagandha, it's called maca, it's called scutellaria or skullcap, and it's got Panax ginseng. Amazing herbal formula to help with the temper tantrums, to help with the stimming, help with the sensory issues, the picky eating. It's amazing. Again, you can use adrenal cortex extract. We have an adrenal cortex extract called Sanity Saver. Either one is fine. I think the herbals work better, but you've got options. When you open this capsule, okay, it's gonna taste like licorice because there's licorice in here, black licorice, all right? Still, you can mix it in things, but it's gonna come up with a licorice flavor. The Sanity Saver, if you open up these pills, these kind of taste like hamburger, kind of like ground beef, okay? It's not bad, it's just like weird. You're like, why does my applesauce taste like a hamburger? So those are kind of the options. Now going up to the thyroid, again, please get thyroid tests done. If you have anything abnormal on a thyroid test, treat it immediately. We've got to get this taken care of. You've got to get it tested. You've got to get it addressed. If you have an abnormal lab with thyroid and a doctor refuses to treat it, find a different doctor, all right? The other thing that I highly encourage you to do is get iodine. Iodine will help with thyroid conditions, whether you have them or not, all right? So change your salt in your house to have a salt with iodine. Many sea salts, which are great because they have a lot of minerals, do not have iodine, but there are sea salts that have iodine added. So please make sure your salt has iodine or take an iodine supplement. We've got an iodine supplement called Iodinamite. Easy. What is it? It's a pill full of iodine, all right? Really kind of straightforward and easy. Easy thing to do. Sorry, I'm looking at the list because there's a couple other minerals in here, but they're at pretty low dose. Okay, so again, hormones are so important, all right? The way to intervene with, first with thyroid, get it tested, get some iodine. If you've got abnormal labs, get it treated immediately, please. I see way too many kids undiagnosed, untested, and untreated. Next, cortisol. Cortisol treatments are huge. They're kind of ignored in the biomedical world, unfortunately, because they are so effective when helping kids' tempers. Okay, so you got tempers, you got stemming. You intervene with cortisol with something like our herbals, like ashwagandha and licorice, or with pregnenolone. You can do both as well. I think you're going to see a huge improvements in those behaviors and tempers.